It's Saturday, and it's time for us to talk technology on the Experts program. That means our tech expert, Luis Alvarez, is with us once again. Luis, welcome back.
Thank you, Mark. How are you?
Doing really well. So, this weekend is the football wildcards, which is one of my favorite football weekends of the year because they're always great games, and I believe we have 6 games this weekend. Let's see, 2 on Saturday, and
3 on Sunday.
Yeah, 3 on Sunday, and then
1 on Monday.
That's right. The LA game has been moved to Glendale, Arizona. So,
yeah.
But it's always a lot of fun. This is an exciting weekend. And then, of course, last night they had the semifinal for the College National Championship game between Ohio State and Texas. And the winner of that game will face Notre Dame for the national championship, which I believe is going to be on Monday the 20th, something like that.
Yep.
So that'll be interesting. And we're recording this on Friday, well before the Ohio State-Texas game. So that's why on this Saturday morning, we don't have a score to share with you. Anyway, hey, CES happened earlier this week in Las Vegas. It's probably the biggest event of the year that comes to Vegas. And there's always something new, technology-wise, and not just consumer electronics. Originally, when this show started, it was the Consumer Electronics show, and it was really focused on everything was consumer electronics. But then when you start getting Teslas and other electric cars and other types of electric things showing up, you really can't call it a consumer electronics show anymore. So that's why they call it CES. But
yeah, exactly.
You had a chance to check this out. And what are some of the highlights from this year's CES?
Well, one of the things that seem to be everywhere are giant TVs. We're talking about 98 to 108 inch TVs that were being highlighted by companies like Samsung, TCL, which is a company that you see in Costco, LG, and they're all using very high refresh, so 165 hertz refresh rates, which is higher than typical TVs, and they're OLEDs, very impressive, virtually it seems like 3D type of TVs, the detail that you get, and they were very popular. You're going to start seeing those probably at the end of this year in stores as these go from a concept to actual application. In the laptop world, Lenovo had a really cool new laptop that incorporates some AI chips in it so that you can use generative AI tools like Copilot or ChatGPT locally rather than having to just rely on the web. So it enhances the capability of those laptops. And you also saw a number of robots for home use, things like, we're used to Roomba, right? The vacuum cleaner robot, but there was other robots in there that were talked about, including one that's designed for older people. Think of it as a companion Roomba that it would zoom around the house and keep track of, let's say, somebody who's elderly and living by themselves. And if they fall or if they have any problems and they scream, it can call 911 and it can respond and ask for help. So these robots are becoming much more capable, especially with AI now. We're going to start seeing more of those, I think, in the future.
A couple thoughts on things. On TVs, you said that the 98 inch and what's the other size?
108 inch.
I was just thinking, what would be the limiting factor on the size of the screens? And maybe it's something kind of practical, like the size of the door to get into the average house or apartment. You can't get much bigger than that, or people can't get the TVs into their houses.
Yeah, exactly. And what's funny about these big TVs is the manufacturing process is such that they are lighter than you would expect them to be. So they're very easy to mount on the wall, for example. You don't need to have massive anchoring capability. They're very light. The question is, do you have a 108-inch wall that you can mount a 108-inch TV on, right?
Exactly.
Most of us don't.
True. And one of the other interesting things with the TVs being so much lighter, obviously the material that the screens are made out of is lighter, and then how it interfaces with other pieces of equipment has changed quite a bit. So if you go back to one of the earlier generations of like large screen TVs that you would mount on a wall, and they were much heavier, and you look at the back of the TVs, and oftentimes they had input and outputs, multiple RCA inputs and outputs for video and for audio and a number of other inputs and outputs on those. And those were all transformer coupled in order to change like from 10,000 ohms down to whatever the format was that the TV had to use. And so you had to transformer couple it. Well, transformers weigh. And that's what made those TVs, all that extra stuff that they had to put in there to give them a lot more flexibility, ended up adding weight to it. Now when you get these TVs, if you're lucky, you might have have a single stereo input RCA and an RCA yellow input, which is a video input. And the way it's going to be coupled into the audio and video of the television is with different technology, which doesn't weigh anything. And so they can reduce the weight of these televisions.
Yeah, with HDMI, most of these TVs have like 3 HDMI ports.
Correct.
And HDMI now has the ability to do high definition audio as well as 4K, or in some cases 8K video, depending on the type of system. So they don't need all of those interfaces. It makes it much easier to plug your TV directly into your receiver and, funnel all of that audio and video through one connection.
Well, and you only need, Louis, you would only need those RCA inputs if you need to plug your old VCR in.
Yeah, that's so true.
Hey, when you mentioned this Roomba vacuum cleaner, it reminded me of something I saw many, many years ago when we were doing a real estate show on the station. And we were out in a house in Pebble Beach. It was an estate sale. And I remember this house had a really unique vacuum cleaner system. This was something that was customized to the house. But there was a central vacuum cleaner located somewhere. Maybe it was like in a closet. And it was hooked to a series like piping that went around all the rooms in the house. And there were like flanges. You would plug the apparatus into it, and wherever you were, you had vacuum cleaner. You didn't have to haul a vacuum cleaner around. I thought that was really interesting. It was probably very expensive to build at the time.
I imagine that that's kind of one of those things. Central vac has to be built at the time the house is being built. Right. You can't go retrofitting into it because the piping alone, we'd have to tear all the walls off and stuff. So
True. Yeah. Well, that was a very expensive Pebble Beach home. So obviously, somebody, that was kind of something that they wanted, and it was very interesting to see. Hey, we want to tackle AI. AI is our main topic this week, and Channel 8 had a story that over the next 5 years or so, 41% of companies worldwide plan to reduce their workforces because of AI. Talk about this.
Yeah, so this is a real eye-opening study that came from the World Economic Forum. And this is, a worldwide study, but it also has application here in the United States because I think the numbers are relatively the same. And that's that 41% of companies look at AI as a way to reduce headcount, especially when it comes to low-level functions, like clerks and administrative assistants, those sorts of things that people you sometimes think as entry-level jobs. And those are disappearing really quickly as AI is starting to encroach into those areas. I use the analogy of back in the day when executives couldn't type and you had secretarial pools where they would hand their handwritten notes to a secretary and she would type it. And then those executives got PCs and started to be able to type on their own. And suddenly the secretary disappeared as a profession, and for the most part. So you see AI starting to displace a lot of these entry-level positions or low-level positions, things like graphic designers that do initial designs, because now you can get something like DALL-E, which is an OpenAI image creation tool, to actually create very sophisticated images. So if you're out there and you're in one of these jobs, you might want to consider doing something to upskill yourself, because that's the other thing that's happening is conversely, as companies reduce these type of jobs, they're looking to hire people who are AI smart to help them and their business embrace and adopt AI technologies and become successful in their businesses with AI.
Right. Now, I noticed that one of the jobs that they say that could be eliminated by AI would be postal service clerks. I find that a little bit hard to believe, only because, as far as my experience is, the postal service clerks that work at the U.S. Post Office, they're represented by the letter carriers union. The last thing in the world that those unions do is allow their jobs to be eliminated. They will fight tooth and nail to stop that. And then from a practical standpoint, the counter service, when you go into a post office, that person can retrieve a letter for you or a package or what have you. I don't know how AI could replace somebody who can actually walk to a bin and pick something up and see that your name is on it and bring it to the counter and have you sign for it.
I think some of the back office type jobs that maybe are being done, not customer facing, those are the jobs that I think will disappear fastest. Maybe when you call in to the post office to ask for information, you're going to see that become more AI focused, but you never know. As we saw with Silicon Valley, massive layoffs of programmers, because now you can use generative AI to do a lot of coding and then have it move to a human being that can verify that the code is good. So you don't need a bunch of coders just starting from scratch. You can now leverage AI to create applications and things like that. So I think we're going to see more and more jobs disappear, but I think there's going to be new jobs that are going to be created at the same time.
It's usually what happens. That's Luis Alvarez, CEO of the Alvarez Technology Technology Group, joining us today. Online, it's alvareztg.com. At AlvarezTG, that's the X handle. And Louis, the toll-free number for the I-Team.
Give us a call at 866-78-I-TEAM. That's 866-784-8326.
And Louis, before we head on out of here, let's look ahead to Monday and let folks know what's coming up then.
Yeah, so Monday, we're going to be talking about a very handy application that can help you link your laptop or desktop to your phone and make it easier for you to text and see your pictures.
All righty. That is the Monday program starting at 8:30 here on Power Talk Radio. Louis, thanks so much and have a great weekend. And by the way, happy birthday on Monday.
Thank you, my friend. Take care.